And we are back for round 4 of this Eternal Tournament Series Last Chance Qualifier. Halfway through the Swiss now. Been going to time these last couple of rounds. It turns out when a Chalice deck meets another Chalice deck, sometimes it can take the entire round to settle down. But that's okay. We all survived. We're still here. We're still playing Eternal. And we've got plenty of action coming our way. Next up, we've got some decks that definitely aren't Chalice decks. We've got NeverLukey on a Fire Justice Shadow mid-range list, Deep Forge Plates and Statuary Maidens and Rising to the Challenge, and Bartolo. Of course, Bart's here again, Champion of Glory as well. So just good, efficient, or evasive units. Bunch of Jacks too, just awesome units with weapons to put on them and ways to look them up. And on the other end, well, we've got Shadowblade on Mono Fire aggro, as if Mono Fire could be anything else, right? But yeah, 4 Groundbreakers, a bunch of Soulfire Drakes, some Grenadin Drones and Oni Ronins and Pyro Knights, 4 of each to get low to the ground and just beat down. Flame Blast may have been nerfed, but it's still a powerful, flexible spell. And both of these decks have been strong enough so far to be in the 3-0 bracket. So they'll both be playing for the privilege of going to 4-0, and just have to see how it plays out. I'm always a fan of decks that are consistent and fast, and I think Mono Fire has that in spades, and can definitely prey on NeverLukey's list that can be a little slow out the gates and doesn't have a lot of comeback mechanics. Not really any sort of life gain in NeverLukey's deck, or harsh rule to reset the board if you get behind. You're really leaning on just this pure power level and the 1-for-1s of your cards that can hopefully translate into card advantage over the long game or ending the game. And we'll have to see how that works out. So we'll be giving the players the go-ahead here. We'll be getting into the action very shortly. It looks like the challenge is out, and we're going to be resolving mulligans here. As we'll be watching mostly from NeverLukey's perspective, but we'll have the hand cam up for Shadowblade as well. So they'll be slightly out of sync here, but I'll do my best to be action coherent. So, yep, Shadowblade is on the play here and opens up with a Pyro Knight, and looks like we'll have plenty of follow-ups to continue as the Caleb's Favor will make sure that Shadowblade can curve out. In the meantime, NeverLukey's got good fixing and undepleted power. Opens up on a Seed of Vengeance. We'll be able to go into a Seed of Chaos and some other things. Also has the option to protect this Caleb's Favor damage, but is going to save it for something. So instead, yeah, Shadowblade hits for 2, but doesn't get to develop the board, and NeverLukey will be able to jam a 3/3 Argentport Instigator down here to stand in the way of this Pyro Knight. Shadowblade could put his Scepter on it, but then it's just going to trade with this Instigator. But it looks like Shadowblade is actually okay with that, because it'll leave the way clear for this Oni Ronin. And so goes with that. Pyro Knight trades, gets a Warcry, and clears the way for this Oni Ronin. NeverLukey has a bunch of power, but does not have a second Justice Source for this Enforcer yet. So instead goes with the Quarry. Does find the second Justice Source, but of course can't cast this Enforcer yet, and instead chooses use that free Seek Power off Quarry to. So Oni Ronin will bash in here, which will enable the Spark on this Groundbreaker to be a 3/6 double damage and prevent NeverLukey from ever gaining life. Although, again, NeverLukey doesn't have ways to gain life anyways. But conveniently, even though Groundbreaker swings for 6, it's out of range of something like Vanquish, which NeverLukey doesn't play either. 4 Slay, 4 Torch, a bunch of Hammers of Might, but no Vanquish. Instead, the Valkyrie Enforcer will come down, remove the double damage from Groundbreaker, and leave a 3/3 in play for NeverLukey. Shadowblade did draw a Grenadin Drone last turn that had received that Warcry and has the Assembly Line in hand as well, but we'll see what else Shadowblade draws. And it looks like just another Fire Sigil here. So Shadowblade will be able to go wide on this board and keep pressuring with this 3/6 at We'll see how NeverLukey responds. I imagine a block plus torch is certainly a thought in NeverLukey's mind here. But we'll see if that's actually what goes down, as all of these Grenadins flood the board. And Shadowblade opts to not attack at all with the 3/6. That is an interesting move from this fire deck here. In the meantime, NeverLukey gets to draw for turn, finds an Instigator, and gets to hold up both Protect and Torch. Doesn't want to use this turn to rise for anything, instead opting to just hold up these fast. We'll see what Shadowblade draws here. Still has that one Warcry lurking on top of the deck, and that Warcry turns out met Pyro now. And now Shadowblade just hits the A space. And NeverLukey's got to decide, do I want to take out these 2 attack units, or I want to trade a unit to deal with this 3/6, but opts to just take out the 2/1 and the 2/2. That'll trigger the Instigator, do 2 damage to Shadowblade, but it's still holding on to this Torch. But I think this Pyro Knight will prompt the Torch. And yeah, there it goes. So here we go. Shadowblade's got more units on board, but NeverLukey's got, I would say, the higher quality units at this point, especially now that a Statuary Maiden makes its presence felt. And that is a real nice blocker for this 3/6 Groundbreaker that Shadowblade has. And now Shadowblade's hoping to find more goodies off the top of the deck, and we'll find out shortly what he's looking. And it looks like Shadowblade finds a Torch. So we'll just pass the turn here to NeverLukey, who is sitting pretty, gets to rise to the challenge. And I'm wondering what NeverLukey wants out of this rise. Could go for the Deep Forge Plate. That's a way to get extra pressure while also having the threat stay back. And yeah, that's what looks like what NeverLukey opts to find is a Deep Forge Plate here. Like that grab. So on Shadowblade's side, they are running 3 rallies. I think that's all really what Shadowblade's looking for is Rally, Obliterates, or Flame Blast. But whatever they found, it's an Obliterate. So they A space here, get in for 2 damage, taking their opponent to 8. And then with Obliterate plus Torch, we'll be able to end this game. Except they know their opponent has a Protect, or has been able to figure that out, because NeverLukey, either has Protect or Torch, right? Those are the only fast spells. But I think if you're Shadowblade, you have to go for lethal here. So the Torch comes out, shoots NeverLukey in the face, and then will probably get followed up by this Obliterate. You're making this attack to make this line of play, but this Protect is going to be really clutch in keeping NeverLukey alive here. Of course, NeverLukey does not have a lethal crackback, so there's nothing stopping Shadowblade from just drawing another Obliterate or Flame Blast here for lethal. So NeverLukey's got to decide what they want to play out here. Do they want to go with a Plate plus a Cudgel? Do they want to slam a Jack down? I think you've got to go with whatever makes you have the fastest clock, and that means Plate plus Cudgel. Try and cut down on your opponent's draws. Then it's just a question of where are you putting the Plate, where are you putting the Cudgels, things that Lukey's got to decide on. But still, they could go with the Jack here. I just think Plate is the way to go. Get them dead as fast as possible. So let's see what Shadowblade can find here. It basically has to be Flame Blast or Obliterate, and judging by that scoop, I'm going to say they did not find either of those cards. So the first game will go to NeverLukey, and we'll go to sideboarding. It's always interesting building a sideboard for mono-faction decks. There's not a whole lot you can change except for like your threats. You don't have access to powerful dual faction cards or that splash that's enabling you to have this clutch sideboard silver bullet. It's more just what kind of burn do I want to play and what kind of units do I want to play. We see a couple Furnace Mages. I don't know if anything like that's going to come in. Probably the extra rally, just stick to the go wide strat. Although on NeverLukey's side, I think this is the more intriguing thing. I believe these Cabral Bailiffs are going to come in. I think that's a certainty. I think something like Bartolo the Seducer will come out. on NeverLukey's end, just because it's not really what you're looking to play against a mono fire deck. And instead, Copperall Bailiff being a 2/3 that also gives all of your opponent's units -1/-1. Really nice against all these 2/1s and 1/1s coming out from the mono fire deck. I also like Annihilate, kills everything. It's basically just a strictly better Slay in this matchup if you want to cut down on Slays, just because they do cost 3. Annihilates are just a nice upgrade. You could also go for the Harsh Rule plan if you think the board's going to get out of control. That's a little sketchy against burn-based aggro decks, where you can try and stabilize off of Harsh Rule, and then ultimately the burn will still finish you off anyways. So it might still ultimately come in here, just because it could just be a better card than some of the other cards in NeverLukey's main board. But it is it's not a card I love bringing in against burn decks. Sometimes it's simply too slow or doesn't stabilize you quite in time. So we'll see if that ends up coming in for NeverLukey. But on the mono fire aggro side, yeah, not sure what kind of changes we're going to see here exactly. Looks like they're changing their monument count a bit. No, they're going to stick to 4. I'm not sure what's... I don't know what their original number of fire sigils was, so I can't comment on that. But yeah, maybe the extra rally will come in and try and go wide. We'll see. But again, I don't expect the overarching strategy of mono fire is not going to change. We're not going to have some sort of transformative sideboard, just slightly changing threats, removal, and reach. There are some Jitos lurking in the side. That's kind of cool with the assembly lines and Graded and drones. I'm not sure when Shadowblade, what kind of matchups he saves that for, to kind of have these combo out of nowhere after a board reset kills. I'm not sure if a 1/1 charge is what you want in this match. But we'll find out as we go to game 2. Observe these players deciding on their mulligans. Looks like Shadowblade ships off their hand. Gets a nice one here with Oni Ronin. Actually, I guess I can't call this too nice, but at least has a turn 1 Oni Ronin. But that gets quickly met with a torch. And NeverLukey has opening on torch into Argentboard Instigator with another torch backup and decent fixing here. Got to be pretty happy, especially with your opponent doing nothing on turns 2 and 3. So Shadowblade just a little slow out of the gates here, and is going to be it's going to be tough for Shadowblade to get back on board. But this Groundbreaker coming down, at least it's a 3/6, doesn't have double damage, but still an imposing presence. And NeverLukey draws an Enforcer here, but is going to opt to rise to the challenge. Could be getting does not play Auric Runehammer, so can't get an Auric Runehammer with this rise and like try and hit this 3/6. So instead, we'll probably go for a Deep Forge Plate again, and yeah, we see that in NeverLukey's hand again here, just trying to get a big unit that goes both ways. Of course, Deep Forge Plate won't get to work on this Instigator, as I imagine Shadowblade will point and obliterate at it unless he's drawn something better to do. All right, well, I'm guessing Obliterate's coming out here, as Shadowblade didn't use anything like Pummel there. So, yep, Obliterate goes down on the 3/3 Instigator. This Deep Forge Plate now stranded in hand. And Valkyrie Enforcer now will step up to the plate and hope to dodge this next Obliterate that is in Shadowblade's hand. Yep, Shadowblade jams in again for 3. NeverLukey at least can gain life. Of course, NeverLukey has 0 life gain cards in the deck, so not exactly important here. And yep, Shadowblade obliterating again. Does maybe inferring that NeverLukey rose for a Deep Forge Plate. So NeverLukey has an Ikaria, not castable yet, but will be castable next turn. Will be able to turn this game around. But in the meantime, NeverLukey's down to 12 health, and is going to be facing down some extra Oni Ronas and Pyronates. And yeah, looks like Shadowblade is going to opt to use the Pummel here, get in for 2 extra damage, get that Scry where he gets to look at the top card, place it on the bottom of the top, and keeps it on top. And if you're NeverLukey, you can't be happy about that. So now Shadowblade's got to decide, do I just dump more threats onto this board? Do I think my opponent brought in harsh rules? Can I afford to play around that? And we'll see what Shadowblade ultimately decides on doing, what they want to trot out here. NeverLukey is still holding up this torch. We'll be able to take out one of these threats that Shadowblade plays. And we'll see if... And it looks like Shadowblade opts to only play out one of them. So the Oni Ronin dies to torch. The Pyro Knight stays in hand. And Ikaria comes down and tries to take control of this game. I did not get to catch what Shadowblade kept on top of the deck. I did not see that, so we'll see it shortly here as Shadowblade will draw it into their hand. And it is a Sensari Brigand. So NeverLukey's got to brace themselves here. And Shadowblade's got to decide if they even want to swing. The Deep Forge Plate lurking in NeverLukey's hand. Ikaria already has Endurance. And I think NeverLukey will gladly just eat up this 2-2 and go to 4. Down comes the Pyro Knight, and Shadowblade... Ooh, this Warcry 5 hits Statuary Maiden. Is that better than playing a Deep Forge Plate? I think having 2 units out here is a pretty good idea. Deep Forge Plate will still present lethal next turn anyway, so playing Deep Forge Plate here, not changing NeverLukey's clock. Better to get the extra unit out. Does Shadowblade top deck the Flame Blast? They do. They needed a Flame Blast or Obliterate, and that's what they find. They take down NeverLukey in game number 2. So it looks like we'll be going to the 3rd game now. This series is now tied up 1-1. And looks like we lost Shadowblade's feed, but we'll be hopefully getting that back shortly, as this challenge will go back up pretty quickly once these players adjust their sideboard slightly. Still, all right. Yeah, it looks like they're still adjusting sideboards. I still do not have sight Shadowblades, but we'll still hop in the observer slot once this match is underway. There we go. All right. NeverLukey did keep in Bartola the Seducer, as we're looking at it in their opening hand right here. So maybe just opting to keep Bart in just because he's such a cheap unit that's hard to remove, and that's just a more valuable thing than maybe some of these other expensive cards that don't really do anything, like, say, Hammer of Might or Slay. But either way, Shadowblade opens with some Grenadin drones. NeverLukey has a handful of Champions of Glory, but they might not be coming down next turn unless he finds an undepleted source. Finds a second Justice source at least, but it is depleted, so Shadowblade has control of the board for now. It's going to get in some extra damage here. Crucially, also has a Sensari Brigand, so this is a ton of damage coming in at NeverLukey, going to go down 15 health here. And we'll start to be able to trot out some 3/3 Champions of Glory. But is there already too much damage done here? We'll find out. Eight space from Shadowblade, nothing pre-combat. Thinking a Pummel's going to come out here. I had a glimpse of Shadowblade's hand before we lost. But I may have missed. My eyes may have deceived me. We'll find out what happens here. Rally is actually the weapon of choice. Takes out the 3/3. Does a boatload of extra damage to NeverLukey. NeverLukey goes down to 5. Shadowblade does not have a 4th power, which means it's only gas in the tank there. And we see, 2 Pummels and a Flame Blast still in Shadowblade's hand. NeverLukey gets to play out 2 3-3s, but I think that means, yeah, with NeverLukey tapped out, 2 pummels on the unblocked unit will be lethal here, and Shadowblade will take this match down 2-1. Keeping the card on top, but yeah, Shadowblade will pummel again here, and yeah, that Grenade and Drone, 5 damage to 5 health is 0 health. We can do math here. And yeah, NeverLukey goes down. That depleted power being really crucial there. If one of that was undepleted, could have gotten one of those 2 drops down a turn sooner. May have had a shot at winning that game, but the Mono Fire deck on the play, curving out, backing up those small units with big pump spells and burn spells, getting the job done. Shadowblade moves on to the 4-0 bracket with Mono Fire aggro. NeverLukey still at 3-1, very much alive to make the top 8. We've still got 2 more rounds to go, though, so a lot of Eternal left to be played, and we'll just have to wait to the next round to get there. Only a few matches left standing. I don't think any of them are Chalice mirrors. I'd have to double check. There's certainly a couple Chalice decks still in play right now that I can tell. But hopefully we'll get back to more Eternal action in just a moment. So thank you all for watching, and stick around.